Welcome back. You're watching the last part of this week's World Insight. Now, in a city famous for money and theatre, Wall Street doyen Bernard Madoff was a master of both. The consummate con man used his charm to wheedle billions from his clients, and now he's set to pay for it with his life in prison.
From Wall Street genius to Mr. Evil. From luxury mansion to solitary cell. 20 years, $65 billion fraud. 71 years old, 150-year sentence. On Monday, Bernard Madoff was sentenced to what amounts to a life term for the biggest fraud in Wall Street history. He was also ordered to give up over $170 billion in proceeds and property, including real estate, investments, cars, and boats. It seemed that only at that moment did he awaken. He said, "I have left a legacy of shame. That's something I will live with for the rest of my life." Unfortunately, so will his victims.
I think that if he never sees the light of day, that's justice for him, not for his family, and not for the victims. We're enduring a life sentence also.
Well, I think the judge was trying to show the world that this man will never leave prison, and that the crime he did was so heinous that we have to show the world that this is not going to be tolerated.
Following the sentencing, Madoff's wife Ruth broke the silence. She said, "Like everyone else, I feel betrayed and confused. The man who committed this horrible fraud is not the man whom I have known for all these years." Maybe no one really knows Bernard Madoff, not even himself. But now he'll have the rest of his life behind bars to figure it out. In 1960, the man known as Bernie started his career with $5,000 saved working as a lifeguard. And soon his name became a legend on Wall Street. He was credited with helping revolutionize the shift in trading from face-to-face deals, from telephones to computers, and ushering in an era of electronic trading. People believed in Bernie. NASDAQ made him his chairman. To some, he was an affable, charismatic man who moved comfortably among power brokers in the U.S.
In today's regulatory environment, it's virtually impossible to violate rules. And this is something that the public really doesn't understand. And if you read things in the newspaper and you see somebody, violate a rule, you say, well, they're always doing this. But it's impossible for you to for a violation to go undetected. Certainly not for a considerable period of time.
The words were all part of a smokescreen. Last December, hit by the economic recession, Madoff admitted to running a massive Ponzi scheme for over 20 years. Ponzi schemes are a type of illegal pyramid scheme. They take their name from Charles Ponzi, who duped thousands of people into investing in a postage stamp speculation scam in the 1920s. It's described as rob Peter to pay Paul. Money from new investors is used to pay off earlier investors. Madoff lured investors with this tantalizing promise. Invest in his hedge funds and he'd pay you stable returns of over 10% every year. No one asked questions. They just lined up to give him money. They were not naive. Among them are banks like Groupe Santander and HSBC and filmmaker Steven Spielberg.
Madoff set up a system where he collected money from savers around the world through well-established financial intermediaries who were often very respectable financial institutions, but who may not have done all the verifications and did not go much further.
And the list of investors was Madoff's best advertisement. If so many VIPs were on it, what could there be to fear? Many put in their life savings.
They're referred to as the golden years, where you retire and you try and enjoy life, and then you get wiped out in 48 hours. Everything that we planned for a whole life is gone.
There are thousands of heartbreaking stories like this. Madoff stole $65 billion from investors around the world. Some have got partial compensation. Some may not see anything ever. And everyone wants to know how Madoff could do it right under the noses of the regulators.
Mr. Madoff, what would you say to all those people that lost?
The customer is entitled to those securities.
As far back as 1992, the Securities and Exchange Commission looked into Madoff's operation, but it found nothing wrong.
The fact that Bernie Madoff is going to spend the rest of his life in jail, you know, that's a good thing, right? But it doesn't repair the damage done, and it doesn't repair the broken system that allowed it to happen.
The Madoff fraud was a wake-up call for the SEC and all the monitoring bodies. President Barack Obama sought reforms in financial supervision.
The absence of a working regulatory regime over many parts of the financial system and over the system as a whole led us to near catastrophe. We shouldn't forget that. We don't want to stifle innovation, but I'm convinced that by setting out clear rules of the road and ensuring transparency and fair dealing, we will actually promote a more vibrant market.
No doubt there will be a flurry of activity in the coming weeks at the SEC and other regulatory authorities. Too little, too late. And there are Madoffs everywhere. Just 2 months after Bernard Madoff's arrest, Japan detained its own modern-day Ponzi. Katsutsugi Nami, the head of a Japanese betting firm, is suspected of defrauding investors with promises of sky-high returns. People can't stop the Madoffs of this world, but they can avoid being fooled. Don't be blinded by greed. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Well, in some ways, the Madoff fraud has come to an end, but people will remember it for many, many years to come. Also, the victims will have to live with it. We all need to remember that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And with that, we come to the end of this program. If you've got questions, comments or suggestions on what you've been watching over the last half hour, please send us an email to worldinsight@cctv.com. I'm James Chow. From all of us here, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again at the same time next week for your insight on World Insight.